In 1958, a woman named Agnes Mauve walked into our law office in Johannesburg, her presence like a storm gathering strength. The air in our small office was thick with the scent of dust and worn paper, the city's restless hum filtering through the thin walls. Agnes, a seamstress from Soweto, carried a quiet dignity, but her eyes blazed with a fire that spoke of courage unbroken. She had been arrested for leading a women's protest against the extension of pass laws to black women, a cruel decree that would chain their every step to apartheid's control. Charged with public disturbance and incitement under the Criminal Law Amendment Act, she faced a prison sentence that would tear her from her children and her community. Her story was a clarion call, a reminder that the struggle for freedom burned in the hearts of women as fiercely as men. I took her case with a resolve that surged like a river, determined to fight for her voice and the thousands she represented. The pass laws were a cornerstone of apartheid's oppression, forcing black South Africans to carry the Dampasa booklet that dictated where we could live, work, or even walk. In 1958, the government tightened its grip, extending these laws to women, a move that sparked outrage across townships. Women, the backbone of our communities, were now to be humiliated, their freedom curtailed by a piece of paper that branded them as less than human. In Soweto, Agnes had seen enough. She organized a protest, rallying hundreds of women to march through the streets, their voices rising in songs of defiance, their fists clutching burning passbooks. The air was alive with their chants, the rhythm of their steps a challenge to the regime's iron rule. But the police answered with force-tear gas stung the air, batons fell, and Agnes was arrested, her leadership branded a crime. Agnes' story poured out as she sat across from me, her hands steady despite the weight of her fear. She spoke of her 2 daughters, who relied on her sewing to eat, of her husband, a laborer who worked long hours, of the women who looked to her for strength. "We marched because we had to," she said, her voice soft but unyielding. "They can't take our dignity." Her words were a spark, igniting my own resolve. The pass laws were not just an attack on movement, but on the soul of our people, and Agnes' stand was a beacon in that darkness. Oliver Tambo and I took Agnes' case with a passion that burned brighter than the Soweto sun. The Criminal Law Amendment Act was a blunt weapon, used to crush protests by labeling them as threats to public order. We knew the courts were a hostile arena, but we saw a chance to amplify Agnes' voice, to shine a light on the women's resistance. We worked late into the night, our office lit by a flickering lamp, the clatter of our typewriter a defiant pulse against the city's hum. We gathered testimonies from the women who marched with her, their words painting a picture of courage, mothers, sisters, grandmothers standing as one. We documented the police's brutality, the tear gas that choked their songs, the batons that scarred their bodies. Our argument was clear. Agnes' protest was no crime, but a righteous stand against an unjust law. The preparation was a marathon. We studied the Act's legal twists, searching for weaknesses, and pored over reports of similar protests, knowing each case built on the last. I thought of my own family, of the women like my mother and later Winnie, whose strength held our struggle together. Agnes' fight was theirs, was ours a battle to reclaim our humanity from a system that sought to crush it. Every affidavit we collected, every argument we honed, was a brick in the wall of resistance we were building. The trial day dawned, and the courthouse stood like a fortress of apartheid's power, its walls steeped in the arrogance of control. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of polished wood and the weight of judgment. The gallery was packed women from Soweto, ANC comrades, and reporters drawn by the growing wave of women's protests. The prosecutor, a man with a sharp voice and sharper disdain, painted Agnes as a rouser, a threat to peace and stability. He waved a police report, claiming her march incited chaos, as if the chaos lay in her courage rather than the laws she opposed. His words were a venom meant to silence her. When I rose to speak, my heart pounded, but my voice was a steady drumbeat of defiance. I held up a charred fragment of a passbook, saved from the protest's fires, and told Agnes' story. This is no symbol of order, I declared, but a chain that binds our women, our mothers, our sisters. I spoke of her daughters who dreamed of a future beyond Soweto's dusty lanes, of the women who marched with her, their songs a testament to their strength, of the injustice of a law that turned freedom into a crime. I challenged the Criminal Law Amendment Act, calling it a tool to smother the voice of resistance. To punish Agnes Mauve, I concluded, is to punish a woman for daring to stand for her dignity. Let us judge the law, not her. The gallery erupted in murmurs, a tide of support, and I saw a flicker of pride in Agnes' eyes. The judge, a stern figure with a face like granite, listened impassively. His verdict was swift: guilty. Agnes was sentenced to 4 months in prison, a blow that stung the air. The gallery cried out, a mix of anger and sorrow, but Agnes stood tall, her gaze unwavering. As the guards led her away, she turned to me and said, "Keep their voices alive, Madiba." Her words were a torch, a vow I would carry forward. The loss was bitter, but it was not the end. Agnes' case became a rallying cry, a melody that echoed through townships and beyond. The women's protests grew, their marches a swelling chorus against the pass laws. We shared Agnes' story at ANC rallies, in pamphlets passed hand to hand, in whispers that carried her courage to every corner of Soweto. Her name became a symbol, inspiring more women to join the Federation of South African Women, their voices rising in defiance. The trial drew international attention, with reports condemning the pass laws as a violation of human rights. Each protest, each song, was a ripple from Agnes' stand, loosening apartheid's grip. In the quiet of our office after the trial, the city's hum a faint pulse. I sat with Oliver, reflecting on what we had achieved. Agnes' strength, her daughter's hope, the women's songsthe were our fuel. We had not saved her from prison, but we had amplified her voice, turning a courtroom defeat into a spark that lit fires across the nation. The struggle for freedom was a long road, but every case, every stand, brought us closer to the dawn. To you who hear this story, let Agnes' courage stir your soul. Whatever laws silence you, whatever forces seek to bind your spirit, raise your voice and stand firm. Your defiance, like hers, is a song that can shake the foundations of injustice. Let it ring out, and let it lead to a world where all are free.